It's the 1-1 pattern. Look at the left 1. It touches these two yellow cells, so they contain one mine. But this right 1 also is adjacent to this cell. Well, if there's one mine in these two squares already, then the cell highlighted in green has to be safe. This is basically the same thing. This left 1 tells us that there is one mine in these two yellow squares. This right 1 agrees. Yep, the mine that's touching this right 1 has to be in these two yellow squares. So the other 3 green squares that are touching this right 1 has to be safe. Now we've got the 1-2 pattern. As we've learned before, this 1 has to have one mine in these two squares. This 2 agrees. There's exactly one mine in these two squares, so this third one has to be a mine. This is sort of an extension of 1-2. The website that I'm using for these reference images calls it 1-2 plus, but to me this is just can you do subtraction. This 4 has 5 squares next to it. This 1 tells us that there's one mine in these two that's marked in yellow. What the 4 tells us is that the mines have to be 1 in here, 2, 3, 4. So these 3 all have mines. This is very similar to the previous one, except that this square is no longer open, but the logic is the same. Focus on the 4. Not both of these are mines, so we have to have 1 mine, 2 mine, 3 mine, and the 4th one is in one of these two. So by extension, since because of the 4, one of these two is a mine, then because of this one, you know that this is safe. The 1-2-1 pattern is probably the most common one in Minesweeper. The 2 has to have 2 mines next to it, but they can't be next to each other because then the 1s would have too many mines next to it. So they have to be skipped. Unfortunately, not everything in Minesweeper is 1s and 2s. Sometimes we've got bigger numbers that are even harder to count to, like 3s and 4s, but everything can be sort of reduced down to either 1-1 or 1-2 logic. So look at this 4. It's already got 1, 2, 3 mines next to it, so the last one has to be in one of the remaining 2 squares that's touching it. For this 2, it's already got 1 mine next to it, so the remaining one has to be in one of these 3 squares that's touching it, which already includes one of these 2, so this green square has to be safe. It's the same thing as 1-1, but like subtraction. This is also fairly common. So look at this bottom 1. It touches these 2 cells, so there has to be one mine in there. So what this top 1 tells us is that, well, if there's already a mine in either this one or this one, both of which touch it already, then these 3 squares have to be safe. So in the event that, I guess, this middle square is another one, it would still be touching these first 2. So these top 3 in that scenario would also be safe. Back to this, these 3 squares are safe. Here's an alternative universe of what happens as we open them. This one on the right tells us that there's only one mine in these 6 squares, and according to this one, has to be one of these 2. So these green ones are safe.